Hello, hello. How are we all doing? Welcome. All right, it is Friday night. It's the Toy Armada. Friday night hang. I'm curious how many of you, first of all, can everybody hear me? I know there's a few of you here. How's the volume? How's everything going? All right. It's just after 10 o'clock here in cold Ohio. Tonight, well, first of all, you've stumbled across the Toy Armada Live. I am a veteran toy designer at Hasbro Kenner, Aaron Archer, and I talk a lot about the toys that I made in the era of toys that we worked in, which is the 90s, 2000s, even contemporary, really. But and kind of bring some of those stories from back in the day before there was a internet in some cases, and before magazines, or only magazines could only tell so many stories. So I'm here to kind of share some insights as to what was going on back then, and maybe why some of the crazy things you loved as a 90s kid, you know. All right. All right. Just want to make sure everybody can hear me. No one's in the chat yet. Somebody say hello. So, as the title said, these are office toy stories today. I am going to take some of the toys in my office that I have based on just my experience in toys. They're kind of odds and ends thing, but I'm going to go through the process of designing toys and show some examples of how I've done it, and or have things that represent the different stages, and just talk about them a little bit. So this kind of live acts as a somewhat bigger introduction to me if you only catch these Friday lives, and kind of puts a little perspective on where I'm coming from, rather than being some random guy mouthing off on the internet. I'm actually a toy professional that has some expertise in what I'm saying and why I'm saying it. So let's see how everything's going here. All right. All right. Well, here we go again. My chat isn't updated. There we go. Man, every week there's a new wrinkle. So, how's everybody doing? Princeton Phalanx 59, Ninjatron, how you doing? Claudio, good to see everybody again. Larry, what is up? Alec, how are you? Hayden, how's it going? So good. Now I feel like I'm not talking into dead space. So thank you. I found my chat. So, people often ask me, how do you design toys, or how does that process go? Do they give you a list? Do they tell you what to do? And you hear me on the long forums often go, well, there was no telling. You present. You kind of have to solve the problem and then present your answer like it's a scientific experiment. Like, is this going to work? And you sell it in, you pitch it in, and you make adjustments from there, good or bad. But so I figured that I would go through some of these steps in the process so that you could just get a bigger glimpse into that. We all know the words, but to see some of this stuff and for me to maybe tell some stories of how that worked in practical sense versus just ephemera from a job. So I'm going to go through a few of these. First, you start with, I'm going to assume we have decided to make a line. We decided to invest in a story or a license, and we are executing a product line. So let's assume all that has happened. So you get to the point where you're presenting actual toys, individual ideas for what can fulfill that segment's expectations. So Legends of Batman, going all the way back, I have this presentation board of Two-Face, Pirate Two-Face. You could see that in the cases for me, the way I made boards, I wanted them to represent my sculpt and put kind of thinking so that I didn't have to reinvent. It was a technique that Mike Brand taught me, like, is if you can get your board as close to what your input is going to be, and management approves it, then you can't go wrong. In the old days, I guess different groups would hand off projects and they would change, and therefore opinions later in the project would change, management wise, about whether that was a good idea or not because the design changed. So anyway, he taught us that. So if you can imagine, so that's my board for Pirate Two-Face. We'll get back to him. Got another example. Last week we talked about Ra's al Ghul and how I made that armor up completely based on the animated vibe. But I found a photo of my actual presentation board, and that is how I presented Ra's al Ghul in. That he was going to come with a helmet, a projectile launcher, and a sword. So there you go. So those are the boards, and then you would kind of say why you were making that, why that villain, how does that play into the overall concept of this line. So Legends of Batman was going kind of Batman throughout the eras, that there's always been a Batman. And so you could make the case that there's always been those villains out there, right? The Elseworlds concept. Or this is a cool animated villain. He beats up on Batman a lot, and we're going to redesign his suit look into cool armor, and he fights with a sword and a mask. So we've overcome the old man in a suit, and you kind of pitch it in that way, and it goes through. An entirely different way to pitch things in would be to make a model. And I have a model that I actually got from the toy hunter who got it from Ham Woodhouse, one of my favorite people to have worked with. So this is some sort of, I don't know the line it would have been from, maybe Marvel, probably not Star Wars. Hard to say what it was from, but it transforms in a bit. So real kind of conceptual way. When you were doing vehicles, you'd often want to be able to present a scale. Pretty drawings are great. This obviously had projectiles in the front. I think I have those still in the box. These wheels transform a little bit. They pull out. So you could show the actual toy feature with a model much better than a drawing, honestly. Even one as rough as this, made of foam and PVC, because you definitely get a sense for what its value is, how big it'll be, and how it plays with other items within the line. So if you made a model, that was probably the way to do it, because you're making a toy, right? So it equated. I did not make models. I only made drawings. So from there, let's say those ideas get approved. And then you would take that then your licensing partner has accepted the ideas and concepts, and you're going to take it to a sculpt input phase. And sculpt input in those days was basically turns, 3 turns, 2 turns, depended on your sculpting partners, depended on the licensing partner in some cases. The shorthand you could have, maybe you could do fewer drawings, or maybe you wanted something very specific, you would do multiple drawings. I know of one sculpt input that's like got 5 layers. John Warden made it. It's a Obi-Wan in training and like Arctic gear kind of thing, and he's got all kinds of little things. Anyway, so we would do the sculpt input. So this also represents a little bit of a deco guide, color guide. But there's your turns, give you a sense of what the sculptor was dealing with. I've also had the board. Here's another one. So this is Laser Cape Batman. This is actually the item I did on day 1 of my work at Kenner. So this one was 2 up for some reason. I was maybe a little intimidated to draw small. But we'll get back to this one as well. All right, so you do the sculpt inputs. Those get approved. They go off to the sculpting department. Nowadays, those could be grown. They could be outputted. But in my day, they were often still hand sculpted in wax. So you end up with something kind of like this. Here's an example. The Kenner Hasbro wax was kind of peachy, I don't know, peachy color. So everything kind of looked like this. So this is the Total Justice Batman in sculpt form. And you might be able to tell maybe if there's more or less detail there, because the actual products will always have less than the sculpt. So might see some extra detail there. So that's a sculpt. And from there, let's say that sculpt gets approved, everything goes well. You're going to end up making molds for your tooling. Okay, and those are usually made in urethane. The first set gets sent to Asia for your tooling because that's the cleanest set out of the molds. And then the next few that are pulled are going to be for your photography, be painted up and be for the photography on the back of the package, or other uses like Toy Fair, Hong Kong Toy Fair, Nuremberg, any number of use, right? So licensing show maybe. So they would make those in urethane, and those could be painted depending on the complexity of the item. The mechanics could be built into these, or they could just kind of be looks like. This is a looks like. So here's the Nightwing for Night Force Ninjas that never came out. It's got the articulation. It does not have the feature. The feature in this case would have been a spring-loaded forearm with a kind of some sort of stick, tonfa stick or whatever, that would have been in there as a projectile. And when you raise the hand up, that would have fired. So that's an example of the next stage. So this is all before the public maybe even sees anything, right? Because nothing's been painted at this point. I have another example of a urethane. So this is our early sculpt guide to how potentially the fusors could be have more detail, raise the sculpting bar for Beast Wars than what had been done in the early waves. So that was really pushing them to go further with that. So they made these. The people have seen these. They're out, some of them. But really cool relic from a long time ago. What else? So Then they need to get painted for that photography, for the shows. Okay. So you have official photography taken. So this is of a Batman figure. So that is a hand painted item. And these photos back in the day would have been taken in every pose without weapons, because these are the guides that would have been sent to the Hong Kong partners and engineers to be the guides for the factories. So this one goes back to 1997. Okay, so now everything can be painted in the factory, or is understood what's going to happen in the factory, and they start molding the things and they start pumping them out. So you get what you call first shots. So first of all, I want to go back. This thing in Hasbro language would have been a prototype model or a concept model. People use the term prototype also to mean, sometimes incorrectly in the fan community, to what it means first shots or test shots for the mold. So here's an example of a first shot. It is testing the molds. It is not yet in the right colors. It's just trying to make sure the hinges work. Excuse me. The tires roll, whatever engineering bits need to be there. Is it tight enough here? Is it too tight? Those kinds of things. Let's show everybody this crazy contraption. So you can see this was a 2 mold item. They had a maybe a 3 mold, but so they just shot it in whatever colors. I put the taxi stickers on it from a Shadow taxi. I also got this about the first week I was at Kenner back in 95. So this is a first shot or test shot. And you make evaluations on the fit and finish. The earlier the test shot, the more it's engineering driven. The later the test shot, it starts to get into different iterations of product. So we've seen the Two-Face. This is a raggedy version. No, this one has its full part. So this is what happened to the Two-Face. So, sorry, got the board here. And then you got the guy. So I obviously didn't have the deco in my final budget than I had in my concept board. So you have to make choices. So his negative side or villain side is a lot less ripped up and zombie-like than intended. You can see here I had deco issues, so I did not paint the back of the belt because that is not seen in package. Because I had to paint so many things on this guy. Normal Batman back in the day maybe had 15, 18 paint ops. Sometimes as few as, I think, 12. So this guy already had, was a nightmare because Two-Face needs the double. So there's that. That's how that kind of can go. So remember this one now. So Laser Cape Batman becomes this guy. And you would get samples to evaluate, are the colors right? Does it continue to work? Is the engineering right? And so this guy, is my very first item, I would say. This is the Aaron Archer original toy. Laser Cape Batman. Designed by Ham Woodhouse, but given to me to do the input. So then from there, you would get package samples. So we all know what package samples of toys look like. I didn't grab one of those, but that in general are the steps that I understand and talk about in these the big bulk stages as we talk about these different toys and toy lines. That's what I mean when I say first shot, deco guide, color guide, urethane samples or prototype samples. prototype models, so hope that helps a little bit. No, the big cat was in here. Didn't even know. Did not even know. All right. So that's all I kind of wanted to cover today. Just wanted to get some basic toy terms down and how I think of it. So if you're just catching us here, it's the Toy Armada. It's Friday Night Live. Really, it's just a hang. I bought some more Lego sets this week. And I made some arrangements for some really cool stuff coming up. Some more professional looking video stuff. So we're going to have some fun there. So we're going to have some fun there soon. And that's going to take a couple months yet, but some things are on the horizon for the old Toy Armada here. So I appreciate everybody coming. Ninjatron, which illustration? Sorry, I showed a few there. I like that idea of a Bat Taxi starring Tony Danza. That is funny. Oh, the Two-Face. Yeah, I worked really hard on that, and I was really into Bernie Wrightson at the time. So if you really just look at that, I totally ripped off Bernie Wrightson along the way. Anyway, there's my flourishes in there. But this was one of my early boards. Here's another little insight. When we would present these things, we'd put our little storylines or selling points on the back sometimes to make sure we hit the high notes. So that is a little look at the back of the boards. They have information too about your favorite stuff. So yeah, that is what I had. So that's the story of Two-Face. I also did the Pirate Joker of that era, where he kind of has a cocked pose. He's got one leg longer than the other. Kind of funny. So I don't know. It's early days, man. We were just Batman. You could kind of have a lot of fun with it. Do you feel disappointed when the final doesn't capture all the detail of the concept that you were expecting? Well, I have to say that like this is one of the biggest things, the difference between maybe being on the inside and on the outside as fans and stuff, and it's very easy to feel that way. Disappointment is probably not the word I'd ever use. I often kind of break it down to it is, you can make the best toy for the money you have. Just like when I got my allowance, I could only buy as many comic books as my money allowed me to buy. So you kind of get into that mindset when you're designing things. So I can draw all the coolest stuff in the world and put all little details and whatever on there. But if I can't really reproduce that in product, it shouldn't be there. So over time I learned, how to do that better. So I was overselling in my illustration. So, but on a broader concept, I don't feel disappointed because I know I'm within a functioning cost structure situation, and you do your best to spend the money as effectively as you can, ideally on the product. And on the package to make it attractive, but not little stupid things or hidden things. Ideally, that's when you get frustrated, when you don't see the money on the product. That's frustrating as a designer. But I would definitely say that things change and you got to go with the flow. Costing changes, you got to go with the flow. The price of oil has changed on me, so a product that was going along fine all of a sudden had to lose things to stay, at margin. So you just accept that, and the product that comes out at the end is the winner. So long-winded answer there, Ninjatron. Was I behind the Legends of the Dark Knight Joker figure that had the skinny body with the big suit? I was not. That was a guy named Anthony Gowd, who runs online video game tournaments and things. Really good designer. At least back in the day, he was doing that. I don't know if he's still designing, but that was all his design. He did a lot of the early Legends of the Dark Knight Batman. He did the Legends of the Dark Knight Bat motorcycle thing. And a lot of the early Batman as well. I came in a little later. Test shot on eBay. Well, test shots on eBay can get out. I mean, test shots can get out of from the factory. Sometimes from Hasbro, but that's very hard these days. But people will do what they got to do to, I guess, if they got something valuable, try to make some money. So how they get it is probably questionable, to be honest. There was a 94 comic about Pirate Batman. Did that factor into this project in any way? Well, the overall concepts of Legends of Batman was, in general, an Elseworlds concept where Batman could exist in multiple story elements, where he could be a detective fighting Jack the Ripper. He could be a caveman. He could be in the medieval King Arthur times. They did a little bit of everything. So they did do a pirate one. I don't know if it was directly inspired. I remember pirates scoring well with kid testing, and that came up. I do remember that, and so that's why we went in that direction. I don't recall if we really looked too hard in another direction, but we definitely Pirates was encouraged by the market research team, and Playmobil was still doing Pirates. Lego was still doing Pirates. So it was a kind of a last gasp for Pirates until Pirates of the Caribbean came out. There wasn't a lot of, well, there was some pirate stuff, I guess, but that's the way we went. But not directly from that comic book, no. Yeah, I still got some Lego pirate sets, but not the old ones. Marcelo is in the house. Yeah, we used to display our toys quite proudly and interestingly, until we had a manager boss come in and kind of make fun of it all and thought we were making museums to ourselves and things, and made everybody embarrassed about toys. And yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. But yeah, I still got a little remnant of it here and there. Because I did the loose toy thing, right? Marcelo calls me boss, and we have a long-term relationship. The Legends of Batmobile seemed very inspired by the Simon Bisley design. Oh, it was. That one definitely was. The Shark Corvette, kind of the same idea. It's a concept Corvette from back in the day. Yeah. So that was definitely inspired by that comic book, the Judge Dredd versus Batman comic Batmobile. But the weird thing is, those Legends of Batman figures had all those weird poses. So that one opens up and you can kind of throw anything in there. There's not really a seat or a cockpit. It's just kind of a area. It's like a weird Batman lounge for his car. So it's kind of funny. Robot Assassin. Chrome was used on several 90s Batman figures. Yep. In recent years, Hasbro phased out chrome on the majority of toys they make today. Is that because the process is apparently toxic? Uh, yeah, it's a secondary process. It is dirty. Not all factories do it. Um, I'm unaware how toxic it is, but it's not depending on the type you do. Which I would probably cover at a later date. We're going to cover some processes, toy processes. Today won't be that day, but how VM works and what happens to it and why your toys look the way they do after 10, 20, 50 years. We're going to cover that. We're going to get into a little polymer science to talk over that one. But yeah, it's also expensive. You have to make particular choices about the sculpting. Not all partners want to make those adjustments. You can't have sharp points and things. You can't do it on certain types of plastic. So, it's just a tougher concept to use these days. Did Hasbro have a shop of their own in Rhode Island? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like a model shop? A huge model shop. Absolutely. A dozen painters, dozen more marketer or model makers, SLA. We still had lathes. I mean, yeah, all kinds of stuff like that. Do you even think it? Did we ever think to do the Batman variants like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles did with crazy variants like Basketball Batman or Fast Food Worker Batman? We really didn't. We really didn't. We kind of went hardcore comic if we could. I know that sounds kind of weird because the stuff wasn't really too hardcore, but we always wanted to make it darker and edgier. We were not. That was still an era where people were like ashamed of the Adam West Batman, like comedy Batman, not good. So we really never went in that direction. No. A retail shop. No, not a retail shop. They had a employee store within the building that was at considerable discount, but mostly closeout stuff. You couldn't find, like you could do your Christmas list shopping there most of the time, unless you were lucky. Sometimes I get a case or two. So, and then there was also old days. There was a warehouse store in Pawtucket that a lot of people remember, and Robot Assassin from Pawtucket definitely remembers. And you could get definitely interesting stuff there. But that was a different model than what I dealt with, so I was not able to see how that one worked. Are there any other Batman designs that you would like to have seen in toy form? We talked about the monster truck a lot, the armored up monster truck from the Bernie Wrightson Cult miniseries, something like that. That then I think was akin to the Frank Miller tank kind of Batmobile. We looked at those, but we really couldn't touch Frank Miller stuff in my era. He and DC were kind of in a détente, so they didn't want to poke the bear, and so they didn't license any of his stuff. So we couldn't really get into that stuff. And at the end of the day, we kind of stuck with more traditional Batmobiles based on whatever the entertainment was. We didn't do too many that were fantastical, right? Hello from Germany. Yeah. Yeah, I think I've seen a Batmobile monster truck recently. Monster trucks are tough toys to make. They're big. They need a big package. They kind of are not as big as they look. The truck's kind of small and the big wheels. Monster trucks are tough. Yeah, you could get interesting things in those shops, no doubt, no doubt. If you are there on the right day or into the right thing. Um, Hi, is there anything left of Kenner, or was it all absorbed into Hasbro in Rhode Island? Yeah, it all moved to Rhode Island. Um, there might be a sales office, but nothing called Kenner. No, not that I'm aware of. um, Two different topics I'm talking about there. The Frank Miller stuff we couldn't do, and the monster truck one just didn't fit any need from the cult. So we could have done that one. We just didn't have a need. There was always a new animated series update to do, or the next movie was coming out. So after that, they weren't going to invest too much in a vehicle that um, didn't connect to entertainment. Hmm. So what time is it? All right, it's 10:37 here. You're watching the Toy Armada with me, Aaron Archer. I'm a ex Hasbro Kenner toy designer, and please like and subscribe if you found me here tonight. A lot of familiar faces here in the chat. We basically just hang out, talk toys. I kind of share some toy knowledge or some toy history of stuff I've worked on, and then we kind of go from there with the discussion wherever we decide to flow. I definitely like the new computer. I can see a lot more detail on this screen. Can anybody tell what this is right there? Bonus for anybody who calls it out. Did Kenner have any direct contact with the animated crew? We sure did. That is a signed Paul Dini, Bruce Timm, Harley Quinn model sheet. Yeah, we went out there. We would interact with them a little bit, basically go out and get reference. And then when they were working on what became Batman Beyond, working title Batman Tomorrow, we were out there pitching ideas or hearing their ideas. And so we definitely interacted with them. They had some, they got to see the inputs of stuff we were working on. For their own use or not use. But they didn't have any editorial oversight of what we were doing. But they certainly saw the stuff we were doing, and we interacted with them. I'd see Paul Dini and Bruce Timm at Comic-Con San Diego every year and say hello and have a little chit chat. So that was fun. But I don't think we directly talked about Batmobiles or anything like that during my time. Do you have a Mac or do you have a real computer? It is a Mac. My wife wanted her Mac back, so she took it and I got a new one. Lucky me. Yeah, no, I'm an Android phone guy, but a Mac desktop guy. Sorry, not sorry. I don't know. Did things get approved wrong? I'm paraphrasing your question here. Because it was sent upside down, or not that I recall. Not that I recall. You tried to be as clear as you could be. So by the time I was there, we this doesn't have it. I don't have anything else here in front of me, I don't think. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wouldn't you like to know what's in here? All right. Sorry about that. But you'd have to be very plugged in. It would be tough for things to get lost in the process, I guess, and be approved incorrectly. I'm trying to find a good example. I don't know if this is a good example. You know, you do your input. This is for weapons. You'd have all your information on the side, but then it'd get approved by all these different people. You know, a team leader, a sculpt leader, manager, designer, engineer, marketing. You know, so. And at any point during those checks, the engineer, the marketer, maybe the sculptor, definitely the designer, would notice something was off because everybody had approved it. Now, I don't know how much the marketing was taking it in exactly to maybe call it out later if it was wrong, but you'd like to think so. And everybody carried those things around. We kept little binders, which I pull out when we do the Night Forest Ninjas. So it'd be tough. It'd be tough for things to get off the rail, at least in the Hasbro system. I don't know. Maybe during a very fast, fluid, dynamic opportunity, things could get out of hand, but that wasn't how it worked most of my time. Todd McFarlane seems to be making every DC character nowadays. Was there any particular DC character you wanted to make but couldn't? Well, shorthand, Wonder Woman, would have been great to have made in Total Justice. But we made almost everybody we wanted to make. We pitched strange characters from the time that could have been in, like the Ray or Aztec. But I don't think I went too deep. I went with the ones I could use and didn't think about it too deep after that. That's a good question, Claudio. Was there any license was close to getting and just didn't end up getting? No, I wouldn't know that level of business. That's probably a little proprietary. I can tell you we pitched on Goosebumps, we pitched on Harry Potter, we pitched on Hercules, Cars, Toy Story, Superman movies, a lot of different things. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. You make your best effort, and Hasbro got the Kenner / Star Wars license and had Batman for a while, and then it changes, right? It goes to another partner. So I don't know if we were close to any of those, to be honest, but I'm sure, we put a lot of effort in to try to get them. So, as close as that can be. Was it common to use parts from building toys for mock-ups? Well, depending on the type of prototype, yeah. If it was a kit bash kind of model, that might come into play. The more finished model that would be at a toy fair or a Comic-Con, that seems unusual. I'd like to see photos to kind of jar my memory there, but it must have been a prototype model. For whatever reason. Yeah, the Planet of the Apes one was a big one that kicked around Kenner. Kenner got Planet of the Apes years earlier with some other brand. I don't know. It must have been Star Wars or something, 20th Century Fox. But and pitched all kinds of things over the years because it was a great concept for a toy line. You know, two sides and you know apes do different stuff. So it was always something on the back burner. And yeah, it did sit around. Um, the Mark Wahlberg ones did sit around for a long time, but before that, there's a whole other line of these kind of bulky little guys, and they're all detailed sculpts. Um, and that line just never had a reason to be, and that was the transition time in that 90s era where you really did want to have entertainment. There was enough entertainment to already do more toy lines. You didn't need to um, Hasbro Kenner didn't have control of the entertainment of Planet of the Apes, so it wasn't like anything we could drive. Um, and nothing was really happening for a while until that Mark Wahlberg movie. Um, so it just never got traction as cool as the toys were at the time. So that's what happened with that one. Were there different rules when it came to making a Robin variant compared to a Batman variant? I don't think there were different rules. I'm curious what's prompting that question. If there was anything particular you thought there could have been, but no. I mean, Batman subtly to get him approved needed he had more things to check off the checklist. You know, he needed a belt, he needed a logo, he needed a cowl, the eyes. You know, ideally the gloves and boots were separated out with a different color, and you know they were pretty big on that. Before that, the early stuff when they got the license for Batman Returns, um, you know, they still had to do the tights, the underwear paint, you know, which was another 4 ops. I didn't have to live through much of that era. We were changing that up. Robin really only had the R and his mask. Everything else was kind of fair game. He could have solid arms. He didn't need to have a separate glove. He didn't have a utility belt that needed to be called out. So it was really just that. Yeah, interesting question. Yeah, I'm talking about the toy line that was unrelated to the Tim Burton one, which is basically all in prototype. If you're familiar with, there's a magazine and a series of books. Where does it go? I have to dig that out. Where a guy covers those old kind of abandoned toy lines, and I think he covered the Planet of the Apes. I'll have more information about that next time. Yeah, we did not look at Justice League animated series by the time that was happening. We were looking at Teen Titans as a separate license, but that never materialized either. Yeah, unfortunately. All right, it's 10:50, so we're down to the last 10 minutes. So if anybody's got anything, hey, did anybody make a guess as to what that is? Anybody? Did corporate ever pitch any insane gimmicks that you just couldn't make work? Well, that is a wonderful question. Stanky boy. We got tasked one time with trying to figure out how to incorporate glow sticks into a toy line. And that didn't work out. It never got applied, but we hunted down safe ways to do it, encapsulated ways to do it where the toxic stuff will never get out, changing the glass thing that you break in there to something that's not glass. I mean, did a ton of work all on the direction of senior management's and for no other reason than they brought it up. Well, we want glow in the dark for no reason other than that we were told. So things like that come up, and you chase them down, or I often, and it has come to life, but it's $800 or more. The self-transforming robotic Optimus, can we get a guy that transforms on his own? That'd be great. Comes to life. And it's like, yeah, with 7 engines and servos and battery packs and lithium, like for 8, yeah, well, that's not, I'm making a plastic figure yesterday. You want me to make a literal robot tomorrow? Sometimes that stuff would, die a slow death after a lot of development, a lot of effort to try to figure it out. So those were annoying. Because internally, almost you struggled with knowing how this is ever going to work. And I hate to be a negative person, but there were some practicalities that you just couldn't overcome on something like that when you're tasked with something very hard. And it's usually coming from a place of trying to get a position in the market, or they literally don't know what they're talking about. Can kind of go both ways. Well, it is a sketch. It is a sketch. It is not my sketch. We're going to keep this going. We'll see if anybody guesses. Did we meet the voice actors for the DC? No, we had really no connection to the DC voice actors. Peter Collins, some of the Transformer actors, definitely a different story. But the DC actors and stuff, no, we were just product people. We were a licensed partner, make the toys. Unless we were going to record their voices, that would have been unlikely. So there are designers and partners of mine, friends of mine, who have met voice actors to do that. So the voice of Ash Ketchum, friend of mine went out, spent the day with her, and got the recording that she needed. With other situations like that do come up, but when you're really and that's because Pokemon needed specific English phrases for these toys. Most of the time you just grab something off a kind of, they used to give DATs and different things that you would get from the studio, but that was rare. Sometimes they would have partners. Tom Hanks famously has his brother do all his recordings. So you just find a way to do it if you needed it for toy, but most of the time you wouldn't have interacted with the animated voice actors. That's a step removed from what a toy designer needs to really get into. Lords of Light. All right. Yeah, we never investigated a Mark Hamill laughing Joker, as far as I know, which was foolish on our part. Me and Steve Bono on our own should have just tried to make that happen just so we could have gone and met Mark Hamill. Next life, I'll make sure that happens. Okay, Steve? We'll do that. Yeah. Too scary to put on the market. Yeah, maybe those Lords of Light. So voice actors and sometimes even the actual actors, you don't really need to interact with. You can get good digital input now, scans, photography, or digital photography for sure. The reason to meet some of these people aren't really necessary in the execution of a product line. Maybe meet them at a Comic-Con as part of a greater entourage of toy people meeting the animation people. So sometimes I would meet people like that, but not in the actual execution of the work. No, the Lost in Space sketch is from Robert Krauss, who created Shakhan the Forever Man. This is, I forget, Miller. It's a FASA robot from way back in the day. And then there's that one. There's that one. It's a little too blurry, I guess. I can kind of see it in my screen, but I realize that's not how it is for everybody. All right. 10:56. So just to remind everybody, I'm on Instagram more than anywhere on the ArcherMonster_creative. I post all kinds of toy-related history there and stories. You could check out the long form of the Toy Armada with Aaron Archer. We just dropped Trans Tech about a week ago. Kind of history of a lost toy line of Transformers. You could check out archermonster.com where I sell character art of stuff I created. Check that reflection out. Here's my gold record for Transformers the movie. Can you see that? So, and other things, my sketchbook and Shakhan work and other fun stuff. So don't forget about that. Please like and subscribe. We do this every Friday for an hour from 10 to 11 Eastern Standard Time. We got a pretty good gang every week going here. We just talk toys and kind of have a convention panel every week. And yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that, Robot Assassin. He does have some of my work. So yeah, I sell work. I sell paintings. These are original paintings. I do custom commissions. If you've got a particular robot you want made, just hit me up. archermonster.com. You can contact me through that. And that's all I had prepared for today. So thanks for coming. Thanks for checking out let me talk about some of my cooler stuff. And we will do it again next week. If you have any suggestions, please put it in the community tab for anything you want to talk about. Not all the work is in a frame. They are in mats. They're in mats, shrunk wrap. You probably want to take it out of the shrink wrap to put it into an actual frame. But people don't like just random pieces of paper, so I've gone this route lately with the help of Rick in his frame shop. So yeah, and I do the sketchbooks, and if you want for a slight fee extra, I add a robot head sketch in those, and people seem to be having a good time getting their customs done. I don't see everybody at a convention. As many conventions as I've done for Transformers, I realize there is many more people who have not got to interact with, so or got a sketch live. So those have been really fun to do, everybody's favorite characters. All right, so there's another painting there of mine for sale. So that's today. It's 11 o'clock. Stay warm. Have a good weekend, everybody. And before I go, I just want everybody to know that we are rooting for the Bengals this weekend. So, again, thanks for coming. And the mystery of the artwork will continue next week. Talk to you later. Night, everybody.